carbon sink. Explain that to us.
Well, when you say natural pasture, do you mean unplowed ever? Because all the fields in our study are cultivated, have been plowed, and now they're grazing them again. So it's not like, sometimes people will overseed into them, or they'll just let what's coming up in the seed bank come up. But when we studied all the three major greenhouse gases, the CO2, the methane, the nitrous oxide, and accounting for all those and the fact that the nitrous oxide is long-lived, the CO2 is long-lived, the methane is short-lived, and actually using a very conservative method, GWP 100. So we're not even using GWP star, which will reduce the methane impact by 4 times. We're using the much more conservative one. IPCC recognizes both ways of accounting for those greenhouse gases. We were surprised that the conventional grazing is a sink. It was 1 ton of carbon equivalent per hectare. Let's see, hold on. So it's basically around 3 tons of CO2e per hectare per year. CO2e, so CO2 equivalent, including the warming of the methane, the warming of the nitrous oxide, and if you draw down enough CO2 into your system, it is a cooling. And net, there's so much more cooling happening from the CO2, it eclipses the methane and the nitrous oxide. So the conventional is not insignificant, but the adaptive side, the AMP side, is 12.1 tons of CO2e per hectare per year. That's very significant. And that's in the southeast US, so we got to do science all over the world to find out what is it specifically in the places that people are working. But I've just done a tour across South Africa, and the universals of moving your animals in a tight herd, heavy hit, short duration, long rest. It's working everywhere, man.
Tell me, I mean, so all the bad rap that red meat has had over the years, I mean, it's not true.
All meat is not meat.
Let's forget feedlots now for a moment.
Well, you can't forget feedlots, and you can't forget all the medicines and all the chemicals that those animals are getting. So yeah, and the stress that the animal goes through, those stress hormones, the theories are that goes into the meat and then goes into the people who eat the meat. So we can't forget that system. The industrial beef system has a lot of room for improvement, right? But the folks who are raising their animals on grass, using animals that are meant to be on grass, that finish on grass, people complain, or people say that the feedlot system is better for the planet because those animals don't live long enough. They don't live as long as the ones that are finished on grass. Well, our research is showing that the ones that are on grass are making the world better. Every day they're alive. So keep them alive for 3 years. And the meat's going to taste a lot better, and the nutrient density stuff's going to come in, and we're going to find out, wait a second, is those more years on Earth putting more nutrients into the meat itself? But when you think about the nutrient density work that Stefan van Vliet's doing, there's no question that the more plants an animal has to choose from, the healthier that animal is. And therefore the healthier the meat is. And if you can kill that animal on the farm or very nearby, then that whole stressful journey that so many animals have, the 250 miles in a truck covered in poo, no matter what temperature it is outside, super hot, super cold, that stress we all get. Who knows if half the reason we feel so stressed, besides politics, is the food itself has stressors in it. I mean, it's chemistry.
Are you going to be researching that too?
That is being researched.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
not us, but Dr. Stefan van Vliet's leading that charge out of Utah State.
And is it part of your project?
Nope. It's just we're damn glad to know him.
Sure.
Right.
So I mean, just to recap,
we can't do everything, right? No. So we have to do certain specifics. Sure. Other people do certain specifics. You have your role. I've got mine. I'm an amplifier for good farming. So if you're doing adapted grazing, we call it high density or ultra high density, whatever it is. Whatever you want to call it.
You're also getting the animal numbers up.
Yes.
Which means that you are compensating for the feedlot. So technically, I mean, haven't done the crunch the numbers, but I mean, if you're going to be farming 4 or 5 times the amount of animals on a conventional farm, there's argument to be made. Maths permitting, we could do away with feedlots because we could just be raising these animals off grass.
Yeah, I think that the amount of animals you can raise and different types of animals you can raise on a healthy hectare, right, is so much more than any research has studied yet. We haven't studied the stacking. We've studied grazing and comparing conventional to adaptive grazing. We've done that in one spot, and we need to do more, right? But the idea that we are only limited to one crop or one animal on that land for that period of time, and then the land sits fallow for the rest of the year, it doesn't play out in nature, and it doesn't play out with any of the farmers that are pushing these systems. And the farmers that are pushing these systems, I think, are just scratching the surface. Because what a lot of them are realizing now, I think you call it road reserve, we call it ditch on the side of the road. There's amazing biodiversity in those ditches on the sides of roads outside the farm. And the farm's been cultivated or managed in such a way that there's been less and less and less diversity and less and less and less of the endemic plants, the plants that are naturally there, that are naturally dealing with the weather that's naturally happening there. So when the farmers get more and more of this diverse species of stuff that is evolved to be right there, with animals that are really evolved to work really well in that ecosystem, and then bring in other production, chickens, sheep, cattle,
Pigs.
row crop, pigs, working in woods and things like that. You don't need to chop down another tree for cattle production. As a matter of fact, don't. Start planting trees. The idea that we have to raise rainforests to grow soy and corn to feed cattle in a feedlot, it's a system that's creating a lot of problems. It just is. It's not an emotional statement. It's not a statement without data. It just is, creating a lot of problems. So I don't want to cut down another tree. Every farmer I know is planting trees because trees and grazing and all the different animals you've got, it just works. You get windbreaks, you get safety. I mean, there are times where the trees can be dangerous. If the lightning strike happens, I've heard of that being quite dangerous for animals. So, nothing's easy, nothing's simple.
Trees are part of the natural landscape.
They're part of the natural landscape. And I mean, cutting down the rainforest it's insanity.
Absolutely.
And so that's why people don't like cattle. Because they're seeing rainforests get chopped down, they're seeing meat that's not healthy for you, and they're seeing animals mistreated. That's why they don't like it. But that's not it. That's a way of producing cattle. There's a way of producing cattle where the animals are really well treated, where trees are getting planted, and the meat from those animals is really healthy for you. So all meat is not meat, as Fred Provenza says.
So 2 things that I wanted to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
We did a book, the pioneer of ultra high density grazing in South Africa was an old guy called Andre Lint.
Andre Lint. Okay.
And he was actually the mentor for Donnie. You were on Donnie's farm.
Got it.
And he passed away in COVID. Extraordinary guy.
Shame.
When the ambulance came to fetch him, to take him to hospital, he was painting the roof of his house. So the ambulance had to wait that he had to clean his paintbrushes, and then they could take him off, and we never saw him again. But we've got a book. I'll give you his book. And what you were saying about we haven't scratched the surface here. That's sort of what he was saying is that we don't actually know where the end game sits.
Exactly.
And I saw a very interesting thing a few.
We call it. We don't know how high is.
No,
we don't know.
Yeah. I saw a very interesting thing a few years ago, a documentary about the atolls in the Indian Ocean, and they went and tried to determine the health of these atolls. These mountains in the sea, and the healthiest atoll. And how they did it was they estimated the biomass of prey fish and predator fish.
Okay.
And the most healthy atolls, the prey fish, the biomass of the prey fish was greater than the predators was greater than the prey fish. So there were more predators than prey, and that pressure kept the system healthy.
Yeah.
Kept the
It makes sense to me.
yeah.
I mean, I would think it would be more equal, but you have to have predators.
To put the pressure on, because
I mean,
when you put the pressure on, everything's operating.
I'm from Kentucky, and the deer population is so out of whack because there's no coyotes, there's certainly no wolves, there's no predation. The only predation is cars, and that's really expensive and dangerous. Yeah. And so, and people have an emotional connection. You can't shoot Bambi and all that stuff, but it's really unhealthy
Something
for
needs to
animals.
kill them.
It's so unhealthy for so many deer to be fighting for that same bush. They're all going to we have wasting disease and stuff.
So nature's finding other ways of taking them out.
No question. Us too.
Have lunch.